She didn't notice it right away. She was too busy laughing with the stranger over complimentary champagne, pretending she wasn't anxious about the meeting that could define her career. But the moment she unzipped her handbag to grab her compact mirror, her fingers brushed against velvet, something soft and unfamiliar. Her smile faltered. Her hand paused. Then she pulled it out, a small black box. Her perfectly painted nails hovered for a second before she opened it. Inside was a wedding ring. Her wedding ring. The one she said she lost in Chicago. The one I found last week lodged between the passenger seat and the floor mat of a silver Lexus that doesn't belong to either of us. She blinked once, twice. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Then she saw the note, just 2 lines. "You don't need to lie about late meetings anymore. I've already left the key on the counter." She read it again, slower this time. Her pupils widened. The man beside her asked something, but she didn't hear him. Her heart was sprinting. Her mind was rewinding. She looked up. No cameras, no confrontation, just that ring in her palm, like a final signature at the bottom of a document she didn't know she was signing. Let me rewind. Not to a first date, not to wedding vows. No, let's go back 2 Thursdays ago. That was the night she told me she was working late on a branding overhaul for a pharmaceutical account. All hands on deck, she said, without making eye contact. She smelled like tangerine and cinnamon, new perfume. Her heels clicked out the door. I checked her location at 8:37 p.m. Not at the office, not even close. She was at a restaurant on the other side of the city, the Glass Lantern, the same one I booked for our anniversary last year. She said it was too expensive to justify. I called the place, asked for a reservation under her name. Nothing. Then I asked if anyone had checked in recently under the name Adrian. Bingo. Table for 2, corner booth. I didn't go there. I didn't storm in. I waited quietly. 2 days later, she left her car keys on the coffee table. I took her Lexus to refill the gas. The seat was way back. The glove box had gum wrappers that weren't hers. And the ring? The ring was wedged in a place no solo woman would ever drop it by accident. That's when I knew. Not suspected. Knew. So I planned. Not revenge, just clarity. A reminder. Something she couldn't laugh off or lie through. Something silent and final. I called the airport VIP lounge and arranged for her bag to be brought to a secure area under the pretense of a cleaning inspection. I asked them to place the box inside and reseal it carefully. They said yes, no questions asked. Now she's sitting there, frozen in a leather armchair, a tablet on her lap she can't focus on anymore. Somewhere across the country, her team is preparing slides for a meeting that she might no longer attend. And me? I'm already gone. But this isn't the end, because what she doesn't know yet is that I wasn't the only one who left something for her. Someone else left a message too, and that message is the reason her business partner won't be calling her again. She stayed seated for 13 minutes. 13 full minutes with that ring in one hand and the note in the other. I know because I had someone watching her. Not someone I hired, someone she used to work with. Someone I didn't know even remembered my name, let alone cared enough to reach out the day before. Her name's Lena. She and Cassandra used to be close, before Cassandra got promoted and suddenly stopped replying to group messages or inviting anyone out after work. Lena called me the night before the trip. Her voice was hesitant but serious. "You deserve to know," she said. And what followed made my stomach drop. Lena told me she had seen Cassandra and someone named Daniel in a suite during a marketing retreat last month. It wasn't even subtle, she said. She introduced him as a consultant, but they were drinking wine barefoot, and she was wearing his jacket. Lena didn't know that I already knew, but what she told me next, I didn't expect. I left something in her bag. Those words stopped me. A note, nothing cruel, just a reminder. What kind of reminder? I asked. Lena sighed. She lied to a lot of people to climb up. I lost my job because of her. She told HR I violated protocol during the campaign launch. The truth is, I caught her sending confidential material to this Daniel guy, and she needed me gone to keep it buried. I didn't know what to say. I thought I had just been cheated on. Lena made it clear it went beyond that. Cassandra hadn't just betrayed our marriage, she may have betrayed her company, her coworkers, and the very people who helped build her career. Lena's message, she told me, was handwritten and folded inside a gold compact mirror. It said, "Everything you stepped on to climb up, it remembers." I don't know what Cassandra thought when she saw it. I can only imagine her confusion, holding two messages from two different people, neither yelling, neither demanding answers, both simply stating that the illusion was gone. But it didn't stop there. She called Daniel as soon as she got into the terminal restroom. I know because Lena stayed close enough to hear the name. Cassandra's voice was hushed and frantic, and then suddenly sharp. "Why didn't you tell me someone was watching us?" She listened for a while, then slammed her phone into the trash bin. I didn't expect that. What I expected even less was what she did next. She didn't board her flight. She booked a new one to a different city entirely. No meetings, no investor pitch. Nothing she told me or her team was real. She was planning to disappear. For a while or forever, I still don't know. Meanwhile, back home, I made sure her key card no longer worked. Her clothes were neatly folded into 2 suitcases and dropped off at her sister's house. I left her a third note there, taped to the inside of the front pocket. "You always said you needed a fresh start. Here it is. You're free to chase anything now, but not while tethered to me." What I didn't know at the time, and what shook me to my core when I finally did, was that Daniel wasn't just her affair partner. He was married to someone I knew. And what he had done, what they had done together, had consequences bigger than anyone had imagined. But that's part of what unraveled next. Because the last person I expected to show up at my door that week was his wife. And she wasn't crying. She was holding a folder. And what was inside would change everything I thought I understood about this entire twisted web. She didn't knock. She stood there, holding the folder in one hand, eyes sharper than anything I'd seen in weeks. Not furious, not grieving, controlled, like someone who'd rehearsed this moment in her mind 1,000 times before it actually happened. The kind of woman who doesn't flinch, even when everything around her is unraveling. "Are you William?" she asked. I nodded, still gripping the door handle. "I'm Madeline," she said. "I think we're married to the same lie." I stepped aside without another word. She walked in like she already belonged there, like she had been living with the same ghosts I was trying to shake. She set the folder down on my kitchen counter and opened it. Inside were photographs, hotel lobbies, blurry phone screenshots, 2 airline boarding passes, a receipt from a jewelry boutique I had never heard of with Cassandra's name on it. Listed under special order, cufflinks, engraving, DC. My stomach tightened. Daniel Croft, her consultant. Madeline flipped to the last page. It was an email printout from her husband's inbox, sent to Cassandra. "We can't keep using the same hotel. My wife's friends are watching. Let's switch cities. Same initials, different coast." Below it was a forwarded thread from Cassandra, telling him when I'd be out of town and where I kept the house key in our garage. I had never seen these emails. I had never even imagined she'd invite him into our home. Madeline finally sat down at my dining table and exhaled. "I was going to confront him at work, but I think maybe it's better if he sees us first." I didn't understand. Us? Her eyes didn't waver. "Let's send them a picture. You and me, dinner at your table, laughing, glasses raised. Let them think we've met before. Let them wonder how long we've known." I stared at her, unsure if this was her coping mechanism or something darker. But then I realized something that shook me. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like exposure. She wanted them to feel what we were living. So I agreed. That night, I sat across from Madeline in my own dining room. And for the first time in weeks, I wasn't alone with my questions. We ordered Thai food. We didn't pretend to flirt or act like friends. We just existed in a shared silence. And then she snapped a picture. No filters, no poses, just two people sitting on the other side of betrayal. She hit send. Minutes later, my phone lit up. Cassandra. I didn't answer. Then hers did. Daniel. Madeline muted it. Then came the messages. Dozens. What is this? How do you two know each other? Is this some kind of setup? Neither of us replied. Instead, Madeline told me something I'll never forget. They've been lying for months, maybe longer. But people like them, they don't fear consequences. They fear being seen. And just like that, the game shifted. We weren't two abandoned spouses anymore. We were witnesses. And what we found next would prove this wasn't just an affair. It was a scheme, a calculated, deliberate partnership built on something much deeper than lust. And Cassandra, she had been planning something far bigger than either of us realized. 2 days after the staged photo went out, silence fell like a sheet of glass between us. No angry replies, no desperate phone calls, just the absence of noise, which somehow felt louder than screaming. Cassandra didn't come home. Daniel didn't contact Madeline. But the real storm was brewing somewhere else. I found it by accident. I wasn't searching for revenge or even closure. I was looking through old bank statements for something boring, a misplaced invoice, when I noticed a pattern. Small wire transfers made every other week, all under $400, all going to a consulting agency I'd never heard of, Straight Line East. The name on the statements was vague, and at first I figured it was just some boutique PR subcontractor. Cassandra was always outsourcing strange things. But the funny part was, the same charge was listed twice, once under my name, once under hers. Only I never authorized mine. That's when the pieces started moving in my head. I looked deeper, accessing the shared financial platform we hadn't used in over a year. Cassandra once insisted we separate accounts for simplicity. What I found in hers wasn't simple at all. There were payments to a P.O. box in Richmond, hotel stays in cities she'd never mentioned traveling to, and then something that made my palms sweat. A security deposit for a 2-bedroom apartment leased at least 4 months ago in both her names. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. I printed everything, took it to Madeline. She read through the papers in silence, occasionally pressing her finger into her temple like she was physically holding herself together. Finally, she muttered, "They were building a fallback." A what? If things went south, if either of us found out, they had a safe place, registered to them. That way, no suspicion if neighbors saw them. No one would question a husband or wife entering their own building. The words felt like concrete dropped in my gut. Cassandra hadn't just cheated. She had created a shadow life with this man, one funded by our money, our trust, and our unknowing signatures. Madeline called a friend in tenant services. We found out they had been using the apartment sporadically for months, sometimes together, sometimes one at a time. It was furnished, modern, sterile. No pictures, no identity, just a sanctuary built for secrecy. I couldn't breathe when I saw the photos. My comforter, my plates, even a framed art piece I had once bought on a weekend trip with Cassandra, the one she said she hated and secretly donated. But here it was, hung on a wall in the apartment they shared. Madeline leaned back and said what I didn't want to hear. They were preparing to vanish, and I believed her. We both did some digging. She had contacts in real estate. I had access to Cassandra's calendar invites through a shared cloud backup she never deleted. That's when I saw the folder, Exit September. Inside were PDFs, travel schedules, a withdrawal strategy, an account transfer process from a Cayman-based investment group I'd never heard of, and then passport scans, fake ones, new identities, different last names, photos of them together, laughing like they didn't destroy 2 lives to get there. This wasn't just about passion or thrill. They were going to walk away from everything, from their marriages, their jobs, their histories, and start a new life with stolen comfort, carefully paved with lies, and they were weeks away from pulling it off. That's when I decided I wasn't going to stop them. No, I was going to let them fall into the very trap they built. Because Cassandra didn't know one thing I knew. I had already spoken to someone from her new investment group. And what I learned about Daniel's past, well, he was hiding something too. Something she'd never forgive. And if I played this right, if I stayed quiet just a little longer, she was going to learn what betrayal really felt like. Not from me, from him. I met him at a parking garage in Reston, 4 levels underground, where the air smells like concrete and oil. He didn't shake my hand, didn't even offer a name, just slid into the passenger seat of my car like we were in the middle of a movie I hadn't agreed to star in. "I got your message," he said. His voice was steady, no small talk, no questions. I had found him through a forum I never expected to use, a financial fraud board for whistleblowers and anonymous reports. Buried in one of the threads was a comment mentioning Straight Line East. The comment claimed that Straight Line wasn't a consulting firm at all. It was a shell, a front created to filter funds through fake business expenses, designed to look clean and government safe. I replied anonymously. 3 hours later, I got an email. "We need to talk, in person." Now, here we were, 2 strangers in a car surrounded by silence and parking lines. "I know Daniel," the man said. "He's changed his name 3 times. His real one is Marcus Devlin. He was involved in a fund collapse in Austin 7 years ago. Took investor money, moved it through crypto, fled the state. Never charged, but people lost millions." The name hit like ice water. I stared at him, not sure if I believed him or if I simply wanted to. But then he reached into a weathered folder and pulled out the proof. Court documents, news clippings, a blurry mugshot that had clearly been scrubbed from every mainstream platform. And then a scanned warrant. Expired, but real. Marked closed, suspicious withdrawal. "He disappeared," the man added, and showed up 2 years later in D.C. with a new business alias and a perfect smile. I couldn't speak. Cassandra hadn't just fallen in love with another man. She had latched herself to a career con artist. And now she was part of whatever he was planning next. "What does he want?" I finally asked. The man didn't blink. "He's trying to pull a clean exit. One more big trust extraction. This time using her connections, not just yours. You're the paper trail, William. So is Madeline. They used your names to build a legitimate face for something that isn't legitimate at all." I felt sick. "So what now?" I asked. He shrugged. "I already made my choice. I'm done chasing ghosts. But if you want to stop this before they vanish, you'll need to hit something they care about. Not money, not exposure. You have to take away control." I sat there in silence for a long time after he left. Engine off, no music, just the humming ache in my head growing louder by the second. I didn't know what to do, not at first. But then I remembered something Cassandra once told me 2 years into our marriage. We were walking past a street magician in Baltimore, and she said, "The only real trick is distraction. Make them look left while you take everything from the right." It was a joke back then. I laughed. Now I understood exactly what she meant. So I made a call. Not to her, to Madeline. I told her everything, and I asked her a question I never imagined asking anyone, let alone the woman who should have been my enemy. "Do you want to dismantle this together?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes." What we planned next wasn't revenge. It was revelation. Because we weren't just going to expose them, we were going to make them watch their own exit fall apart. And we were going to start with their investors. It started with a name. On one of the Cayman documents, tucked in the corner under the beneficiary section, was a name neither of us recognized, Elias Corbin. I sent it to Madeline with one word, "You?" She replied, "Never heard of him. Let's find out." And we did. Within 72 hours, we knew Elias Corbin wasn't just a phantom placeholder. He was a real person, or had been. A tech investor from Denver, retired early, vanished from the scene 3 years ago after a messy falling out with his business partner. No public statements, no sightings, no obituaries. Just gone. Madeline had a contact who used to do data security consulting for private clients in the crypto space. She called in a favor, and within a day we had something chilling. Someone had been using Elias's identity, opening accounts, booking flights, securing contracts. The IP addresses all routed through 2 locations, one in Virginia, the other Houston. Cassandra's last business trip. It hit me harder than I expected. Not because I didn't suspect her, but because it was confirmation that she wasn't just adjacent to the crime, she was facilitating it. Signing paperwork, backing a ghost, smiling into the camera while feeding oxygen into a lie that spanned multiple countries and at least 6 shell companies. I remembered the little things. The nights she stayed up with spreadsheets I wasn't allowed to see. The way she'd say, "You wouldn't understand. It's all legal structuring," and flash that tired but charming grin. That grin I used to trust. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was complicity. And now we had names, real names. Investors who had unknowingly sunk tens of thousands, some even hundreds, into this fake operation. Daniel and Cassandra had carefully crafted a stealth tech startup pitch, promising high-yield, short-term returns through private placements. It sounded slick, groundbreaking. Encrypted networks, logistics automation, predictive AI. All of it was smoke. There was no product, no prototype, just an empty LLC and a PowerPoint with animated transitions. And we had the list, a full spreadsheet of those who had opted in. I stared at it for hours. Most were mid-level execs, a few doctors, one retired naval contractor. Then there was Arthur Desai, a lawyer based in Baltimore who specialized in financial litigation. Madeline saw the name before I did. She pointed at it and said, "That's the guy we start with." So we booked a meeting. We didn't go in with rage or accusations. We went in with documents. Madeline laid out the shell structure. I walked him through the fake accounts. She showed him the payments. I showed him Cassandra's signature. He didn't blink. He just said, "You have no idea what you've walked into." Then he told us what he knew. Arthur had been suspicious of Daniel for months. The numbers didn't add up. The supposed early returns were mimicking pyramid behavior, fresh money paying off the old. But he had been sitting quietly, collecting proof, unsure if it was just bad bookkeeping or something worse. Now, with our information, he was certain. "This is wire fraud," he said. "Federal level. If they cross state lines again, it's a ticking clock until the right agency notices." We didn't celebrate. We listened. Because what he told us next wasn't advice. It was a warning. If you go public, they'll bury it. They'll spin the narrative. Daniel's done it before. Cassandra's good with faces. She'll play victim, and you'll look like angry exes. But if you build the story right, document it, timestamp it, track them, then you control the ending. He agreed to help, quietly at first, through channels only attorneys like him know how to open. And if it worked, if the pieces landed right, we wouldn't just be giving them consequences, we'd be taking their future away. But they were already moving faster than we expected. That night, Cassandra finally called me, first time in weeks. Her voice sounded strained, dry, like someone who hadn't slept in days. "William, I think someone's following me." I held the phone for a moment. She was still pretending, still playing innocent. But something was off, because for the first time, she sounded scared. And I realized something. Maybe she didn't know everything Daniel was doing after all. Maybe she was just a pawn, too. Or worse, maybe he had turned the game on her. Cassandra sounded like a ghost of herself. No arrogance, no smugness, no carefully rehearsed confidence. Just raw, breathless fear. And not the kind you can fake. "I'm not imagining it," she whispered. "Someone's outside my hotel. Same guy, third night in a row. Just watching. I changed rooms. I didn't tell anyone where. He still found me." She wasn't crying. That's what unsettled me. She wasn't trying to guilt me or seduce me or manipulate anything. She was just unraveling. "Where are you?" I asked. "Atlanta." That made no sense. Last I tracked, she was supposed to be in Chicago. It hit me that maybe she was hiding from Daniel. Maybe something between them had fractured, something big enough to make her flee. "Did you tell Daniel?" I asked. A pause. Then he stopped answering. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding, but thoughts calm for the first time in weeks. Because suddenly, she wasn't the powerful one anymore. She wasn't the woman with the plan. She was the one being played. And I realized what Daniel had done, what people like him always do. He let her be the face. She was the signature on the accounts, the name on the apartment lease, the charming, articulate front that made the whole scheme look polished. Daniel, on the other hand, barely left a trace. He stayed behind email aliases and shell corporations. He let her carry the spotlight so he could vanish into the shadows once the money moved. She wasn't his partner. She was his decoy, and she was just beginning to understand that. I didn't tell her what I knew. Not yet. I needed to hear how much she'd admit without pressure. "What did you two plan to do?" I asked. Another pause. I could hear her swallow. "We were going to start over," she said. "In Portugal. He said there was a property there, off the grid, quiet, safe. We were supposed to transfer the funds next week, but now he's gone. His accounts are closed. I can't reach anyone." She was unraveling in real time. "What funds?" I asked slowly. She broke. "Some of yours. I'm sorry. I didn't think you'd notice. He said we'd replace it before anyone ever checked. But William, there's more. I think he used my name for things I didn't sign." She finally admitted it. I muted the line and signaled Madeline, who was already digging through the latest records with Arthur. We were building a digital trail of the fraud, documenting everything with timestamps and third-party verification. Every hour counted now. I unmuted. I asked Cassandra one final question. "Do you still have your access to the offshore accounts?" She hesitated. "One, the backup." "Good," I said. "Keep it. Don't move anything. Don't log in again. Just leave it. And if that man shows up again, call the front desk, not me." "William, please." I hung up, because I wasn't done yet. We still had to find Daniel. And it turned out Madeline already had a lead. A wire transfer pinged from a known laundering account, one that flagged a compliance team we had quietly informed through Arthur. The funds were paused, not blocked, but enough to set off a review. And the destination? A private boat registry in Savannah, Georgia. Daniel wasn't flying. He was sailing out. We didn't call the police. Not yet. We got in the car. Madeline drove. I stared out the window, 1,000 versions of what could happen twisting through my head. None of them ended clean. But I wasn't hoping for clean anymore. I was hoping for truth, even if it cut deeper than anything I'd felt before. Because if we were right, if Daniel was trying to vanish by sea, this wasn't just about fraud or betrayal. It was about escape. And the person he was escaping from might not even be me. It might be Cassandra. We got there just before sunrise. The marina was nearly empty. Fog curled around the docks like a secret trying to hold itself together. Madeline pulled into a side lot overlooking Pier 4, where a sleek white sailboat was being prepped by a man in a dark windbreaker. I knew it was him before I saw his face. Daniel, or Marcus, or whoever he really was, moved with the kind of efficiency that comes from long practice. No panic, just purpose. He was dressed like a tourist, but moved like a man who had been living 2 steps ahead for a decade. Madeline lifted her phone and snapped a few photos. We didn't confront him. There was no point. The documents had already been submitted. The flagged wire had triggered federal interest. The moment the boat hit international waters, he'd trigger a different kind of alert, one that doesn't go away with aliases or charm. Instead, we watched. He boarded the boat, looked back once at the dock, then started the engine. He never saw us. We let him go. Not because we couldn't stop him, but because letting him believe he escaped meant we kept control. Letting him think we were still searching meant he wouldn't bury whatever loose ends he left behind. And we had what we needed: timestamps, transactions, faces, names. Cassandra called one last time that afternoon. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't offer excuses. Just silence at first, then a single line. "You were never the fool. I was." I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "You still have a choice. You can come clean before they come for you, or you can run." She didn't respond. 2 days later, her attorney contacted Arthur and offered a full confession in exchange for reduced liability. She turned over every login, every record, every password. She burned every bridge Daniel had built. Whether she did it out of remorse or fear, I don't know, but it was enough to complete the case. Daniel was arrested 4 weeks later, stepping off a different boat in Puerto Rico. A customs agent ran a background check, and the red flags lit up like fireworks. Cassandra's testimony sealed his fate. It wasn't dramatic, no courtroom speeches, no headlines, just quiet justice. Madeline and I didn't keep in touch the way you might expect. No romance bloomed, no late-night confessions. But we did meet one last time at a bookstore in Georgetown over coffee. We didn't talk about them. We talked about ourselves, about who we used to be, about who we could still become. Before she left, she said, "I think we were supposed to crash into each other. Not to save each other, but to remember what being seen feels like." She smiled. And for the first time since this all began, I smiled back. It's been 7 months now. I moved to a quieter part of the state. I work part-time for a nonprofit that helps victims of financial scams. Not because I needed a job, but because I needed to feel useful, real. I no longer ask why it happened. I no longer check her social media. I no longer wear the ring I once thought I'd never take off. And every now and then, I visit the marina, not to look for Daniel, just to breathe. Because sometimes, escape doesn't mean running. It just means choosing yourself again. And that's exactly what I did.